Hi everybody, I was gonna show you how I installed a wall insulation kit here for a customer just now. It's on a Stump 4 and I'll take you inside and show you what I did. Previously to doing this though, I came in here with a wet towel and wiped all the residue off of it and made sure everything was dry before I started. So I'll take you where we start right here. You got about 10 pieces that go around the whole top of the blind, from the ceiling to the top of the ledges of the windows and the door. And I start right at the middle of the door approximately, and that way I got a perfect ledge to line my first piece up. Then I, from left to right, there's a sticky back or a paper you peel off. I peel that off about a quarter of the way, get her flat on the door ledge, and as I start peeling, I push to make sure there's no gaps between the insulation and the blind, because as you go around, the blind is round, so you need to make sure it is sticking all the way so you don't have no gaps in there. So after I do that, I come down from the top piece on the right side of the door and I line it up with the top piece and the hinges on the window. So I bring it down and you can see, try to see it better here. Kind of a little dark, but you can see how I line it up on the top band and the hinges. And then on this piece I found it easier to go from top to bottom, so I peel that sticky back off about a quarter way on everything, and then I just line her up and stick it and then start pulling and pressing down as I go down. And you can see it ends up about the bottom of the door frame. There's going to be two pieces like that just for the door, in between the door and the windows. But as I go around, there's probably about 4 pieces that go in between just the windows. So I start at the window with the opening and the tabs. And what I do is I line the top up with the band, and I go down and make sure the left side's lined up with the frame of the window. And I found that when you get to the next window, you can see here the hinges, a lot of times they overlap the hinge, and I don't like that because it just don't look right. It's not necessary to put wall insulation on a hinge, and if you ever had any problems with it, you'd have to rip it off anyway to get at it. So I put it up there without taking the back off, and I measured how far it would go to the end of the hinge, and I cut a little bit back to make sure it would line up on that side with the hinges. And I did that all the way around. You can see out the window, this thing's still strapped to my trailer. It's going to go to the customer here tomorrow, so I didn't want to take it off. Then when I get to the last piece that goes in between the door and the window, that also too didn't have the same gap between the door and the wall insulation as the other side, so I measured it. It was about 2 inches, and I put that up there and gave it the same exact gap on one side as it had on the other, and that way it looks uniform from top to bottom. Excuse me. The last step, the bottom pieces, I started right on the right side of the door again, lined it up with the bottom of the piece between the door and the window, and I made sure it ran right on the edge, bottom edge of that frame of the window. And on these pieces, you want to go from left to right as far as peeling back the back and sticking it. There again, on this last piece, I wanted to make sure it had the same gap, so I made sure I cut that bottom piece the same as the top piece right there. And the last thing I got is the vents. I got a 4-inch razor blade, or a few of them, you know, that I use for scraping paint, I guess they're used for. And that worked good for, on the outside, you can take the vent out and cut around the hole, saw around the hole area, so you can pop that round insulation out of there. And then from the window, take your vent and put it back in through the outside, and it's got tabs on the inside. While you're holding it in place, you can pull the tabs back and she's back in place. Excuse me. So that's about all there is to putting the wall insulation kit on, and this is how I found works best for me, and I've done it several different ways and trial and error, and boy, this thing looks good after you get it done.